Hello and welcome back to the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning series by the Learning Trust, where we simplify the MEL journey for the after-school sector. If it's your first time joining us, you can catch up with past content by checking out our last 2 episodes that cover a basic overview of MEL and creating a theory of change. This 3rd episode in the series highlights the key content covered from the data collection session for after-school programs. The episode will focus on why we collect data, the indicator approach, as well as the different tools and considerations to make when collecting your data. Let's jump right in and cover the 4 reasons why after-school programs need to collect data. First, it's important to monitor progress to see whether you are achieving your goals. For example, you may want to know how many learners are benefiting from your program, or how many have dropped out in the past year. Your organization needs to build trust by being transparent and accountable for the work it's doing. This means being able to report to your donors and board, as well as your target communities and partners. Collecting data regularly makes this task less daunting. Once your data is collected, it's easy to learn where your program's strengths and weaknesses lie, and what changes you may need to effect to improve your work. And lastly, when you know what works well and what needs to be changed, data helps you adjust and improve your programs. You could figure out how to improve learners' performance in STEM-related subjects or their interpersonal and leadership skills. Now that we've looked at why collecting data is important and helpful, we can get into what kind of data we should be collecting using the indicator approach. Indicators are the markers or signposts we use to determine whether we are achieving our goals. Indicators can either be developed by an organization or informed by sector standards. And so, indicators help us determine what data we should be collecting and ensures that everyone is on the same page when it comes to evaluating progress. This means that when you use the indicator approach to data collection, you factor in the inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes of your programs. Pause the video here and try to remember how we also covered these concepts during our 2nd episode on theory of change. If you need a reminder, feel free to revisit the previous episodes from our YouTube channel. In the 1st episode of the series, titled MEL 101, we shared an example of a MEL framework with indicators. The same principle applies here when we consider the data collection needed. Follow along and pay attention to the column headings highlighted. A percentage change in learner retention is an indicator that you might use to measure the quality of your program. Collaboratively, as an organization or group of organizations, you can decide how you will collect data against this indicator. Now let's put this into practice. We will measure the percentage of learners who start a term and complete the term. We will do this using attendance registers at the end of every term. It will be the responsibility of each program coordinator to capture the attendance, names, and unique identifiers correctly, and it will be the responsibility of the program manager to analyze the data to determine the percentage each term. The program manager will feedback the findings in a team meeting at the beginning of each term, and the team will discuss how to improve retention and the program. Take another pause here and see if you can apply the same process with another indicator you use to measure progress within your own organization. Really, take a moment to think about it. If you're struggling to think of an indicator, visit your organization's theory of change and select one from there. Now we'll move on to data collection tools. These are the instruments used to record the information that's gathered. When choosing your tool, there are a number of factors to consider, such as context, cost, available resources, and frequency. You may notice that these factors are also present in the MEL framework template that we just used. This means that once you've gone through the exercise of answering questions about your indicator, it's easier to determine the tools that will work best. The first consideration for choosing your data collection tool is context. Consider the where, who, what, and when of your program. Your tool should ideally be informed by an understanding of how these factors function simultaneously. Next, consider the cost of the whole process. Your tool should be practical and cost-effective. These considerations can help you plan ahead and factor the data collection costs into your budget projections. Again, feel free to pause here to ponder on these various costs. A related consideration is looking at your available resources. Does the organization have enough time, personnel, budget, and other resources to successfully carry out the data collection process? Be realistic. What is actually possible with your current resources? Remember, you can always start small and build over time. Lastly, consider how often data will be collected. Some data might be collected on a daily basis and other data at the end of a project or period. Different frequencies often require different tools. Now that we've thought about factors to consider, we can see what selection of tools we have to choose from. I'm sure you are familiar with qualitative and quantitative data, or have at least heard these concepts before in research. This distinction also applies to indicators and collection tools. Quantitative data can be counted, measured, and expressed in numbers. A programmatic example might be the output of increase in number of learners registered on the program, or the outcome of increase in average termly school attendance. An example of quantitative tools for after-school programs are daily attendance registers, learner performance reports, academic assessments, and observation ratings. This is an example of an observation tool used by the organization Songo. A facilitator would be responsible for observing and rating the learner. Here are some tips to consider for quantitative tools. Pause here to take note of these tips. Can you think of other useful tips that could benefit after-school programs? Which ones does your organization use? Please share them in the comments below this video to inspire other after-school programs. Now we'll cover qualitative data. It is non-numerical, descriptive, and conceptual, reflecting people's experiences, perceptions, opinions, and so on. A programmatic example might be the outcome of increased learner confidence or improved sense of community responsibility. Examples of some qualitative tools are case studies and stories of change, photography and video, tutors' assessments of learners, interviews, focus groups, and learner experience surveys, which can also be used in quantitative data tools. This is an example of a self-evaluation tool used by the organization Jungle Theatre Company. Instead of numbers, the tool uses phrases and icons to evaluate the learner's experience and progress in the program. Here are some tips to consider for qualitative tools. Pause the video here to take note of the tips. You'll notice that the tips focus on language and ways of expression, so it's important to be as clear as possible with your requests, questions, or instructions when crafting your surveys. There is no comparison or competition between qualitative and quantitative indicators. It is helpful for your program to have both if possible. Their respective importance will depend on your needs. This session completes the third of 3 MEL series episodes that focus on core theory, and we hope it's been helpful for your organization's MEL journey. We will now move on to the practical application of learning in our data analysis, data visualization, and impact reporting sessions. That's it from the team at the Learning Trust. Until next time.